When starting SpaceX, I thought the odds of success were less than 10%. And I just accepted that actually probably I would just lose everything. But that maybe would make some progress. If we could just move the ball forward, even if we died, maybe some other company could pick up the baton and keep moving it forward, so that would still do some good.
If you were 22 today, what would the 5 problems that you would think about working on be?
Well, first of all, I think if somebody is doing something that is useful to the rest of society, I think that's a good thing. Like, it doesn't have to change the world. Like, you know, if you're doing something that has high value to people, and frankly, even if it's like just a little game, or, you know, some improvement in photo sharing or something, if it has a small amount of good for a large number of people, I think that's fine. Like, stuff doesn't need to change the world just to be good.
Do you think people that want to be useful today should get PhDs?
Mostly not.
So what is the best way to be useful?
Some yes, but mostly not.
How should someone figure out how they can be most useful?
Whatever this thing is that you're trying to create, what would be the utility delta compared to the current state of the art times how many people it would affect? So that's why I think having something that makes a big difference but affects a sort of small to moderate number of people is great. As is something that makes even a small difference but affects a vast number of people. Really about just trying to be useful and matter.
And then when you're trying to estimate probability of success, so you say this thing will be really useful, good area under the curve. I guess to use the example of SpaceX. When you made the go decision that you were actually going to do that, this was kind of a very crazy thing at the time.
Very crazy,
very
for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah, people are not shy about saying that. But I kind of agree. I agreed with them that it was quite crazy. Crazy if the objective was to achieve the best risk-adjusted return, starting a company is insane. But that was not my objective. I'd simply come to the conclusion that if something didn't happen to improve rocket technology, we would be stuck on Earth forever. People sometimes think technology just automatically gets better every year, but it actually doesn't. It only gets better if smart people work like crazy to make it better. That's how any technology actually gets better. And by itself, technology, if people don't work on it, actually will decline. You can look at the history of civilizations, many civilizations, and look at, say, ancient Egypt, where they were able to build these incredible pyramids, and then they basically forgot how to build pyramids. And then even hieroglyphics, they forgot how to read hieroglyphics. So we look at Rome and how they were able to build these incredible roadways and aqueducts and indoor plumbing, and they forgot how to do all of those things. There are many such examples in history. So I think should always bear in mind that entropy is not on your side. Yeah.
One thing I really like about you is you are unusually fearless and willing to go in the face of other people telling you something is crazy. And I know a lot of pretty crazy people, you still stand out. Where does that come from, or how do you think about making a decision when everyone tells you this is a crazy idea? Or where do you get the internal strength to do that?
Well, first of all, I'd say I actually think I feel fear quite strongly. So it's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
So speaking of important things,
like, people shouldn't think people shouldn't think, well, I feel fear about this and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. Like, there'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear.
So you just feel it and let the importance of it drive you to do it anyway?
Yeah. Actually, something that can be helpful is fatalism, to some degree. If you just accept the probabilities, then that diminishes fear. When starting SpaceX, I thought the odds of success were less than 10%. And I just accepted that actually probably I would just lose everything. But that maybe would make some progress. If we could just move the ball forward, even if we died, maybe some other company could pick up the baton and keep moving it forward, so that would still do some good. Yeah, same with Tesla. I thought the odds of a car company succeeding were extremely low.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And when did you decide to get into computers and technology?
Yeah, so when I was about 10 years old, I went into a store in South Africa and saw a Commodore VIC-20, and I guess maybe I was 9 years old. I don't know, somewhere at that time, and I thought this was like the most awesome thing I'd ever seen, and you could like write computer programs and make games, and I played Atari and other things for other games, consoles, when I was like maybe 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. So the idea of being able to like create games I thought was really exciting, and so that was my first computer, as a Commodore VIC-20. I think it had like 8K of memory.
And then what led you into entrepreneurship? Was it something that you always knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and start something on your own, or did you just stumble into it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually wasn't sure what I wanted to do growing up, and I think at one point I thought, well, inventing stuff or creating things would be a cool thing to do, but I wasn't really sure if that meant starting a company or whether that meant working for a company that made cool stuff. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I first came out to Silicon Valley, it was to do grad studies at Stanford in applied physics and material science. Mm-hmm. And then I saw, this was in '95, I kind of thought the internet would be something that would change the world in a major way. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be part of it. And actually what I first tried to do was I tried to get a job at Netscape. So I wouldn't actually try to start a company, I tried to get a job at Netscape. And then
that didn't work out?
No, I didn't get any reply. So I had a physics and economics degree, or physics and business degree from Wharton, and I was doing grad studies in applied physics and material science, and I guess that I didn't have a computer science degree or several years working at a software company. So for whatever reason, I didn't get a reply from Netscape, and I actually tried hanging out in the lobby, but I was too shy to talk to anyone, so I was just like standing in the lobby, and then I
just walked in. Did you have your resume with you, or was it?
Yeah, actually, it was pretty embarrassing. I was just sort of standing there, trying to see if there's someone I could talk to, and then I just couldn't. I was too scared to talk to anyone, so then I left.
Amazing. So then you went on to do what from that point?
So then I was just writing software that summer, and it got to the start of the quarter for Stanford, and I had to make a decision, so I decided to go on deferment. So I figure if I start a company and it doesn't work, then I can always go back to grad school.
Sure.
It's just, so I talked to the chairman of the department, and he let me go on deferment. And I said I'll probably be back in 6 months. And he said he's probably never going to hear from me again, and he was correct. I've never spoken to him since. So I started a company with my brother and a friend of mine, Greg Curry, and the three of us created Zip2, where the initial idea was to create software that could help bring the media companies online. Mm-hmm. So we helped, in a small way, bring companies like like New York Times, Hearst, Knight Ridder, and so forth, bring them online. Because they weren't actually always online. People don't realize that.
Were you the CEO at the time, or did you give that role to someone else?
Yeah, I started off being the CEO. So I was CEO for probably the first year, and then, but after we got VC funding, the venture capitalists wanted to hire a professional CEO.
Was that frustrating, or were you like, this is over my head, I'm ready to give up this role to someone else?
At the time, I thought it was a good idea because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I figured they would hire someone who would be really good, and that person would increase the chances of success of the company, and so that seemed like a good thing, and then I could work on software and kind of product direction, and that's what I like doing, so that seemed like a great thing. Now, in retrospect, I think that wasn't the best thing, because the person that was hired, in my opinion, was actually not that great. So I think yeah, I mean, I think quite frankly, the company succeeded in spite of that person, not because of him.
You know, starting a company for the first time is very challenging for a lot of people. They don't even know where to begin. You must have run into a lot of, I mean, we all made mistakes in starting our first company as far as hiring, like you said, the people you bring in, like the CEO that replaced you. Did you surround yourself with mentors? Who did you look to for advice?
I read a lot of books and talked to lots of people. I didn't have any one person who was a mentor, but I always look for feedback from people around me, and feedback from an historical context, you know, which is books basically. I think the first is you need to work, depending upon how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hot up we had just one computer. So the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night, 7 days a week, all the time. And I mean, if you do simple math, say like, okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company. The other thing I'd say is that if you're creating a company or if you're joining a company, the most important thing is to attract great people. So either join a group that's amazing that you really respect, or if you're building a company, you've got to gather great people. I mean, all a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. And so depending upon how talented and hardworking that group is, and the degree to which they are focused cohesively in a good direction, that will determine the success of the company. So do everything you can to gather great people if you're creating a company. Then I'd say focus on signal over noise. A lot of companies get confused. They spend money on things that don't actually make the product better. So, for example, at Tesla, we've never spent any money on advertising. We put all of the money into R&D and manufacturing and design to try to make the car as good as possible. I think that's the way to go. So for any given company, just can keep thinking about, are these efforts that people are expending, are they resulting in a better product or service? And if they're not, stop those efforts. And then the final thing is to sort of don't just follow the trend. So you may have heard me say that it's good to think in terms of the physics approach of first principles, which is, rather than reasoning by analogy, you boil things down to the most fundamental truths you can imagine, and you reason up from there. And this is a good way to figure out if something really makes sense, or if it's just what everybody else is doing. It's hard to think that way. You can't think that way about everything. It takes a lot of effort. But if you're trying to do something new, it's the best way to think. And that framework was developed by physicists to figure out counterintuitive things like quantum mechanics. So it's really a powerful method. Anyway, so that's, and then I think that the final thing I would encourage you to do is, now is the time to take risk. But as you get older, your obligations increase. So and once you have a family, you start taking risk not just for yourself, but for your family as well. It gets much harder to do things that might not work out. So now is the time to do that before you have those obligations. So I would encourage you to take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it. Thank you.
How do you spend time at Tesla? What do you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably a lot of people don't realize I'm like basically just in the factory in design or engineering meetings or production. So that's like 80–90% of the time. I think sometimes people think I spend a lot of time on Twitter.
Sure.
I don't know why they would think that. That's crazy. But actually, it's like that's like almost nothing. Most of my time is spent, well, at least in the last several months, especially going around the factory, and then working on, say, the paint shop, the body shop where we weld up the body, the final assembly where we put all the parts together, and then if I'm not here, I'm at the Gigafactory in Nevada.
Aside from making great products, how do you get people excited about Tesla? There's a lot of people I know and that I talk to who are just intrigued and interested and excited about Tesla as a company.
The thing I really focus on at Tesla is like really put all of our money into and attention into trying to make the product as compelling as possible. So, because I think that really the way to sell any product is through word of mouth. So if somebody gets the car, they really like it, and actually the key is like to have a product that people will love. Yeah. And generally people, if they're at a party or talking to friends or whatever, you'll talk about the things that you love. But if you just like something, it's okay. You're not going to care that much. But if you
get
love
the reactions from the highs and the lows,
yeah,
so you got to make sure people really love
you're gonna talk, and then that'll generate word of mouth, and that's basically how our sales have grown. Like we don't spend any money on advertising or endorsements or so anyone like buys our car, they just bought it because they like the car, and it's genuine. No discounts. Like I actually even pay full retail price for my own cars.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we're really focused on trying to make the cars more affordable, which is really tough. Like in order to make the cars affordable, you really you need high volume. So you need economies of scale. And because the other car companies make a lot more cars than we do, they got way better economies of scale. So as we're gradually able to build up and do more cars, higher volume, then we can build them for progressively like less money, and then make the cars available to wide range of people. But it's super. Honestly, like the car industry is like super competitive. It's like insanely competitive.